September 16th, and they celebrate it similarly to how we do here, but they take it to an entire new level. It's celebrated on this day, and it's because there's the revolt against Spain, and this is when it started. And there are fireworks, parties, music, flowers, and flags. The color of the Mexican flag also has flowers that color, and there are also people throwing confetti and blowing whistles and horns. The roads may be closed due to the celebration, and as this is a national holiday as well, schools, banks, and many other businesses may be closed. Dia de los Muertos is another holiday that is celebrated in Mexico, and it is celebrated on November 2nd. And on this holiday, they honor the dead. They honor their dead relatives by gathering at cemeteries, decorating graves, and buying things that go along with this holiday, such as sugar skulls. Typically, families will make a nice meal, throw a party to remember their lost family members. Banks will be closed on this day, but many other businesses will remain open. And you can see that they have something set up on the table in the bottom right corner for Dia de los Muertos. Next, there is Noche Buena, which can be considered the equivalent to American Christmas Eve, but it's kind of different because it takes place from December 16th to December 24th. During this time, children will dress up in the costumes in order to reenact the story of baby Jesus. After this, there are parties, and on December 24th, many families will go to Mass, go home, and eat a big meal, and then the children will receive presents from baby Jesus, similarly to the way that Americans receive presents from Santa on Christmas. They also celebrate Christmas differently, though, and it's Navidad. And it is also celebrated on December 25th, and on this day, many families take the time to relax after all the festivities that were going on the week before. And they also use this day to spend time with family and friends, and generally they eat leftovers from the celebration on the day before. And next, Hannah Breedlove is going to be talking to you about Mexican art.
Hi, I'm Hannah Breedlove. I'm going to be talking to you about Mexican art. More specifically, I will talk about the types of art, the history, and the famous artists. Art is a huge representation of Mexican culture. It displays the Mexican heritage and it shows colorful pride. A lot of Mexican art include wall hangings and vases, which are the top 2 photos, and paintings, handmade masks, toys, and clay pottery, which are the 4 photos on the bottom, and they are often created for traditions. Folk art is the name that is given to the art that is created and in which they're mostly done handmade. The best representation of Mexican art is paintings. You might notice that Mexican paintings involve a lot of vibrant colors and unique patterns, and that is because they're very big on giving lots of style to their art and decor. The interior and furniture in Mexico is typically filled with those bright shades and eye-catching designs, unlike most of the interior you see in the US, on the other hand, which would usually consist mostly of solid colors and complementary shades. So that kind of shows a little bit of individuality in Mexico, that they're definitely a lot more different. Also, not only houses, but most Mexican restaurants will have very colorful tables and chairs and lots of paintings hanging as well. One of the most popular pieces of Mexican art is the sugar skull. They create paintings, papier-mâché masks, and just about anything, and the sugar skull is a symbol to represent a day that they celebrate called Day of the Dead. That is why you might see a lot of paintings or masks that involve a skull with lots of designs and decorations throughout it. Next is the history of Mexican art, which it started way long ago between 1500 BC and 1500 AD. The Olmecs wrote the hieroglyphics and created a calendar which were full of designs and different symbols, which started the inspiration of their traditional art designs today. The muralist movement was kind of a big time in Mexico. It began in the 1920s and it influenced Mexican artists to create murals and paintings of human activities and any sort of symbolism of their actions and things they always did and loved, because they felt that their Mexican art should show a great representation of their Mexican culture. Today, Mexican art is considered to be very important in cultural heritage, and it's also got value in the US because, well, we see their art quite a lot. Finally, there are lots of artists, but there were three men who used their art to change the culture: David Alfaro Siqueiros, Diego Rivera, and Jose Clemente Orozco. They were also known as the Big Three, which there is a photo on the top right-hand side that shows what they kind of looked like, just to give you a better visualization. But these were the three most famous artists in Mexico. They became a big inspiration during the Mexican Revolution, and they also helped found the muralist movement. And believe it or not, after all this time, their art is still around today, and it represents great importance on the Mexican culture. Mexican art is definitely something that's very important to their culture and to the people. And I really hope that you kind of got a better outlook and understanding on the types of art, and that all their art is handmade, mostly, and their history and basically the origin of where it came from, and the three most famous artists. Thank you for listening and for your time. And up next speaking is Lindsay Lennon.
Hi, I'm Lindsay and I will be talking about the Mexican food and language. The food that they use, how they cook it, ingredients that are used, and the different restaurants that have come out since. For the language, I am going to talk about the population that speaks that language, the different languages that are spoken, and the history of the language. The food and language is a big part of who Mexico is and what they are known for. The first one I want to talk about is food. The Mexican food originated from the Mayan Indians that was prepared over 2,000 years ago. In Mexico, it is traditionally spicy foods that are being served at restaurants or cooked at home, such as burritos, tacos, enchiladas, and tamales. They use popular ingredients when cooking, and some would consist of corn, beans, tortillas, rice, peppers, potatoes, and avocados. In the different regions of Mexico, they are each known for different things being grown there. When they make their food, it is completely natural and rich in color, taste, spices, and is very flavorful. A common drink that they have there would be called tequila, horchata, and soda. A lot of the people living in Mexico like to have spicy foods, and they like the heat from it. Some of the cooking methods that they use are like the ones that we use most every day, like boiling water, grilling some type of food, and frying something. When holidays come, they cook food for that holiday, and each holiday has something different that is being made. Mexican food hasn't changed much over the years, but it has gained popularity around the world. There are at least 38,000 Mexican restaurants across the United States. The next one I want to talk about would be the language. The language in Mexico is a big part of who they are. The language that is spoken is Spanish, and about 80% of the population speaks it. The different languages that are spoken in Mexico would be the Mixtec, which about half of the population speaks. The Yucatec Maya is another language that is spoken in Mexico by over 3/4 of the million population that is living there. The government has also noticed that there are many other languages that are spoken in Mexico, and they are considering them official languages. So I have talked about the Mexican food and language, the different foods that they have, and what the ingredients are that are mostly used, the common drinks that they have. For the language, I talked about the population that speaks it, the different languages, and a little history about the language. Thanks for listening. Up next is going to be John Gillum.
Thank you, Lindsay. Much of traditional Mexican clothing is derived from 16th century Spain. In the 16th century, Spain was the world's leader in fashion and set the trend for European clothing styles. Their clothing was well known for its elegance, stitched with gold and silver threads, and embroidered with beads, precious gems, and small stones. Even further into its history, Spanish clothing styles were heavily influenced by Moorish cultures. Moorish culture dominated much of the Iberian Peninsula from 1711 until their fall in 1492. Known for their elegant embroideries and use of precious silks and stones, it is no wonder that Moorish fashion was so widely adopted. As time went on, black became a very popular color among the higher class, worn mainly to special events and social events, usually with gold, necklaces, and precious stones. Clothing in Spain also evolved into an art form, stitched with heavy fabrics and often embroidered with colorful lace. However, with time, Spanish clothing styles became less desirable, failing to change with popular interests and demands. Eventually becoming outdated, this gave way for French dominance, and big popular cities like Paris were more creative at the time and began to determine the current 17th century European fashion. Today, in modern-day Spanish clothing styles are typically reserved for special social events, usually worn for weddings, parties, or special family get-togethers. And often while in the midst of Mexican culture, you'll even see street performers and mariachi bands. These performers wear the traditional costumes, often for effect more than anything. Men you will typically see with large sombreros and coats, and women with large frilly dresses and skirts decked with ornaments and bright colors. Over the years, the traditional bullfighter's costume have remained the same as well. Often known as the suit of lights, or traje de luces, these suits are extremely decorated and often worn with a large cape. The bullfighter typically has a sword as well. Although bullfighting is centered in Spain and not in Mexico, the brilliant styles used in the arena have helped to greatly influence the traditional clothing styles of modern-day Mexico. Having greatly influenced the Mexican culture as well, Mexican native groups have also contributed a vast amount of influence upon traditional Mexican clothing and culture, and more specifically, their clothing. Aztec clothing was often loose-fitting and colorful, very similar to the Spanish clothing styles of that time. The variety of colors that they had is greatly credited to the trade amongst the various people of Central and South America. And even while still in their teens, Aztec women were taught to weave by hand, using primarily cotton to make their clothes. Hipuli are only one type of Aztec garb. They're colorful tunics that can be traced back to the native people of Central Mexico and Central America. These ornate tunics were often decorated with ribbons, lace, and other unique designs. Ichipili is another form of Aztec garb. It's a form of military armor and was composed of thick braided cotton, usually made stronger with brine. Made effectively, this native armor could slow and even stop an arrow. Probably one of the most iconic pieces of Mexican clothing is the poncho. Having roots in Central and South America, the poncho dates back to before 500 BC, before the colonization of Spanish in the New World. They were traditionally designed out of materials such as wool and fleece, and originally ponchos were designed to keep the wearer warm and dry. As time went on, they became less used for usefulness, but were constructed out of lighter and more colorful materials and more for fashion, as was the trade of that time. Probably recognized as one of the most iconic pieces of Mexican clothing as well, the sombrero, being tall and wide-brimmed, was traditionally used by cowboys or vaqueros and mariachis. Its usefulness ranged from protecting the wearer from the sun to keeping the rain off their heads in the rain. Even today, they are widely used to influence everyday ball caps and even beanies. In conclusion, our group talked about the history, holidays, art, and language of Mexico while discussing their significance to their culture and why it is so important to them. We also discussed their common greetings, the country's national heroes, and the country's variety of food and types of traditional clothing and its origins. Throughout our research, we found valued information about the different traditions of a culture that is quite foreign to us. And through our findings, we're able to better appreciate and value the importance of their country's ethnicity and their culture and ways of life. I know we learned so much about this culture in the research that we didn't know before. Hopefully you did too from hearing our presentation. So today, I challenge you. I challenge you to search, and dig, and find something you knew little of and pursue it. The world we live in is so vast, and the knowledge it contains is just as large. And hey, who knows? It just might surprise you.